This is Lightning Power Lunch, presented by Reef Rum on the Lightning Audio Network with Dave Mishkin and Greg Linnelli.
I didn't love our game tonight, I'll be honest. I thought our execution was off, and we played the game slow. We were just slow tonight, slow in our puck movement, our execution, our speed, and so that didn't help us. In saying that, Buffalo's they're a good team. See why they've ripped off, how many games they've ripped off in the last 25, how many wins. And they can skate and they make plays, they defend, they do a lot of really, really good things. So that was probably an entertaining hockey game for most. The coaches will pick it apart, but that was two what I consider really good teams that went at it, and it's probably fitting that they went to overtime.
Boy, Coop looked tired there, didn't he? He looked like, I just came off the Stadium Series.
He better get some rest on that
yeah.
cross-Atlantic flight to Italy on Friday.
I
was reading the article, the NHL, or it's not the NHL, it's the countries have arranged charters from New York on Friday to Italy. And I think Ed and Cena had this article. J.J. Moser is actually traveling with some of his Swiss teammates who play in the Devils. There are a lot of Swiss players on the Devils who are going to the Olympics, and they kind of have their own deal where they're going to go over, I think, as a group. But
sure,
I'm presuming Coop, as the coach, is going to go on the charter. Maybe he'll get a nice long nap on Friday. He will have earned it.
Well, you think about, life as a coach, as a player, I think can be taxing, especially coaches, because you're probably constantly looking at film to a degree. I mean, I shouldn't say that. I don't know how much film, but you do know they do it. They don't just show up for a game and say, "Come on, boys, let's go get them." But you think about the process he's had to endure over the last couple of years, because I think that's probably what it's been like to pick this team, Team Canada. I mean, it's been a process. So you're constantly evaluating. You've had the Four Nations tournament, and I'm talking about over the last year, and you've had playoffs. You've had this tremendous run that his team has been on, but there's stress involved because you're losing players almost every game, it feels like. So you're constantly having to adjust and integrate new players into your system while at the same time winning games. And now you've got the Stadium Series and the Olympics really in a short window. In addition to, you have to play a couple of games here before you head over to the Olympics.
Yes.
That week. And so it's just a lot. And let's humanize this. I mean, we all can feel the effects sometimes of a busy schedule. And I think for the Lightning and for John Cooper, this is a busy, busy time. And
very busy.
And it's emotionally draining too.
And that's the thing. The job as a head coach, and look, they sign up for this.
Yeah.
It's a lot more thrilling than a lot of other professions because you're in the thick of it. You're behind the bench. Being behind the bench in a hockey game is a rush.
It is.
But when you have a rush, there's going to be a little bit of a letdown too, right?
Letdown.
This isn't pick a profession. There's some great professions out there, but
I'm a rock star.
If you're sitting at a desk, it's a little different, right? You might be working long hours, but it is a little different than being, a head coach of a major league sports team.
Huge rush.
And being in the thick of, like we hear the words, battle, right?
Right.
You are in the thick of tremendous action, and you ride that as well. Now, as we know, he's coached over 1,000 games in the NHL, so it's not his first rodeo. But yeah, I can understand why he might be a little tired.
Well, and the fact that Cirelli,
if he's tired, he just sounded a little tired.
He
there.
did,
but maybe he's not tired. Who knows?
Maybe he's not tired, and maybe he'll get some sleep. To your point on the plane, but it does feel like coaches today's game. What's the famous story with Joe Gibbs, the former Redskins Hall of Fame coach? He used to sleep at his office. Like he wouldn't go home, and that can lead to burnout, no doubt. And so I think
that's what happened to John Madden.
Yeah.
Before John Madden was this iconic announcer, he was a coach. He coached the Raiders. Took over, I think, in the late 60s, if not the late 60s, very early 70s, and won a Super Bowl.
Boom.
The Raiders kept running into the Steelers. That was basically the Raiders. The Raiders probably would have won more Super Bowls in the 70s.
Correct.
Because they had to play the Steelers repeatedly and often in Pittsburgh. I think the Steelers won one game in Oakland. This is before you were born, but it was on my radar a little bit.
Yes.
One of their Super Bowls, the Steelers won. They had to win in Oakland, and they did.
Yeah.
Madden was the coach for most of those Oakland teams. They finally, one of the years the Steelers lost, they may have lost to Oakland, actually.
It might have been 76.
Yeah, 76, 77.
Yeah.
The Raiders ended up winning the Super Bowl, and it wasn't long after that Madden was like, I need to step away. Right.
Yeah,
now, he didn't step away from the sport because, he got to be a broadcaster for 30 years.
Yeah.
Maybe longer. I'm not sure exactly when he stopped, but he and Pat Summerall were an iconic duo.
Think about it.
CBS is the network they worked for. But it's not just hockey coaches. It's a high-stress job. Yeah.
The money today makes it easier to swallow those longer nights and those moments where you're in distress. I mean, it's really hard to turn down $5 million, but that, to your point, that is part of the situation. Anyways, John Cooper speaking last night's.
Yes,
I think,
and the team is on the ice right now, by the way.
Good.
So we can give an update about what's going on there.
So Steve just texted this. This came from Ben. Cooch, Guentzel, Hagel, and Vasi all given a rest day.
Understandable. Today, we were just talking about their time on ice, not for Vasilevsky, but he's played a lot too.
He has.
The other three guys are playing extraordinarily high minutes for them during the regular season. Playoffs are different, but during the regular season for them to be hitting. Cooch was at like 22 last night, which was a little bit more normal because he doesn't kill penalties. But, Guentzel and Hagel have had two enormous minute games in a row.
Guentzel playing center. That was, certainly a story last night, taking more faceoffs. Of course, we know he's on the power play, kills penalties. I mean, he is, as Cooper said last night, when you're a really smart player, you can adjust to anything. He said, if I have to put him on the back end, I probably could. And that's what it is. But big picture thoughts, and then, partner, we can break down this game. Nikita Kucherov, again, it may not seem like it, but you look at the score sheet, and it's another 4-point game. The pass he makes at the end to Guentzel, that is very few players can do it. What was interesting about that play, it was a long shift for him. You could tell he was dead tired. I actually think he poked the puck away with his stick coming back on a back check, and they were able to corral the puck, and he just turns and throws a dart, and I'll use a football analogy, to Guentzel, who, again, maybe his finishing ability is a little bit underrated in today's game, but just phenomenal. And then, of course, we get into the Darren Raddysh again, makes his presence felt with an opportunity late in the game to tie things up. Raddysh, at this point, you wonder if he's looking at a 5-year contract worth $6.5 to $7 million, the way he is playing right now.
Phil brought that up. Did Phil say that on the air last night, or did he say it off the air? He wouldn't care if he said it on the air. I know he said to me and you. Well, he said he was looking at maybe 6 years for Raddysh. He's like, he's going to be 30. A 6-year deal takes him to 36.
Maybe.
And I think the money that he mentioned was in the range that you were talking about.
That's probably
so clearly he said it to me off the air and you didn't even say it.
No, that's probably accurate, but another big
that may be what the Lightning, like from his perspective, what the Lightning would offer. You get out on the open market and
they overpay.
A little
typically.
Silly season. Yeah.
It does get some. But I'm curious, your thoughts overall. I thought all in all, another win.
Yes.
Against a divisional foe. I thought Buffalo looked good. I thought their goaltender played well.
Very well.
And I know there were some moments there that we can talk about with Finley, Gord having opportunities, but curious your thoughts, initial impressions of Buffalo and just what you thought of the game. Yeah,
and let me just qualify. When I say silly season, that's good for Darren Raddysh. Darren Raddysh, if he decides to go to open market, the fact is, you said, teams tend to overpay for free agents. That's good for the player, right? So he has a decision to make about his future. And right now, fortunately for the Lightning, he's focused on doing what he's doing for Tampa Bay, which he was as big a reason as any why the Lightning got points out of last night's game. We can get into that. So I was impressed with the Sabres. This was a strange first game for the two teams. The Lightning had a lot of stuff going on. coming off the Stadium Series high, and Coop doesn't often talk about this publicly. I'm sure he thinks about it, but he actually mentioned it last night. He's like, yeah, this game was a concern because it was coming in between the Stadium Series game and after the Stadium Series game and the game against the Panthers, which is always loaded with subplots and everything else. This game was in the middle, right? And it was the first game after the high of coming back and winning that game outside. You know, many of the players said, you know, I'm going to remember this game for the rest of my life. So how do you come back, you know, less than 48 hours later or 48 hours later and 30 minutes and play the way you need to? So that part was challenging for the Lightning. They were shorthanded again in terms of injuries. You know, you're pulling Paul and Cirelli out. Hedman is just coming back, getting reacclimated. You had a bunch of guys who were playing their first game in the NHL in a while. Curtis Douglas hadn't played since December 27th in the NHL. Sabrin hadn't played in the NHL since December 28th. Finley has been in and out. That trio formed a line as well. But it was a weird game for the Sabres too, because they're finishing the second half of a back-to-back. They had a really hard-fought emotional win in Sunrise the night before. So what were we going to see? And even after the game, I'm having a hard time distilling exactly what happened, because what Coop said is right. The Lightning weren't at their best. What he said is we played slow, we didn't execute. And I don't disagree with that. Phil and I were kind of getting animated about some of the miscues the Lightning had at points in the game. So I agree with what Coop said. But when you look at the totality of the game, every statistical category was in favor of the Lightning. So they outshot the Sabres. They out-attempted the Sabres. I think based on the goaltending, we would say they outchanced the Sabres. Maybe most of those chances came in the first period. I think there's no question that Colton Ellis had to make more saves and more difficult saves than Vasilevsky. So even in a game in which the Lightning might have not been clicking on all cylinders, I thought the Sabres had a lot to do with that. The Sabres, for the second half of a back-to-back, they dug in, they competed, they played hard. They had the early, goal against. They pushed back. And I thought that they showed well. They're a good team. Coop is also right when he says, look at their last 25. It was actually 26 and now 27. They've only lost 4 games in regulation. They won 21 of them. They're a good team. I was really impressed with Samuelsson. We talked about him, not just because he scored the 2 goals, but that was impressive too.
Yeah.
He's now got 11 on the year. I mean, he came in at plus 28.
Right.
I think he finished plus 2 last night, maybe plus 1. He might have been out on the 5-on-6 goal against. But, I mean, he was outstanding defensively. That was the best game I've ever seen Mattias Samuelsson play. And, again, not just because he scored the 2 goals, but he's playing like that. You talked about the pedigree on defense with Dahlin, Byram, Samuelsson, and Power, who I thought had some struggles last night. But, he's a number 1 overall pick, and, he's a very, very good player on most nights. That's a really good top 4 for Buffalo. So understanding all of that, you get through the game and you're kind of the Lightning, if not for Ellis, they probably would have won that game in regulation. So I'm not quite sure exactly what to make of that, except to say that the Sabres competed. They were kind of in the Lightning's face. They were in the passing lanes. Sometimes they got a little lucky, they were in the passing lanes and a pass hits off a skate. It's not like the defender really was doing much except being in the way, but they deserve credit for that. And those slight miscues took away maybe some opportunities for the Lightning. And the Sabres deserve credit for grabbing the lead twice in the third period. So I guess at the end of the night, you could say the Lightning could have won in regulation, but the Sabres also could have won in regulation. In fact, they were 25 seconds away from winning that game. So let's see when they meet again. We had the fan yesterday say the next time they meet will also be the second half of a back-to-back for the Sabres, but the Lightning will be playing their third game in 4 nights as well. So you get these games in the schedule. We'll see. I like the Sabres. I think that based on the makeup of their team, it seems like they are not a fluke. They've earned what they've gotten to this point, and if they keep playing this way, they're going to get in the playoffs. Where are they going to finish? Who knows? So how did the Lightning win this game. Darren Raddysh's shot in the third period resulted in the 2 goals that they really desperately needed. So the Sabres, so it's 1-1 after 1. The second period was a little bit of a weird period. Like, there wasn't a lot of flow. I thought actually the Sabres might have outplayed the Lightning, but when you looked at the stats in the second period, shots were 10-4 Tampa Bay, which really doesn't make a lot of sense because, the Sabres, I thought, had more possession, actually. Shot attempts were low. Unless they changed it, I had it 17-12 Lightning. So the stats didn't really tell the story of how the Sabres were able to kind of disrupt what the Lightning were trying to do. So we go into the third period. The Lightning with the Guentzel, Kucherov, Hagel line, they get a chance in the offensive zone. I think it was a shot from Kucherov. Ellis made the save, and Guentzel's right on the doorstep and can't quite settle the puck down to shoot it in. All right, there were a few of those plays for the Lightning. Guentzel seemed to be in the middle of a bunch of them. Remember that play in the second period where
I do.
He threw it in front and hit off Samuelson and just dribbled wide. Sabres counter. Samuelson brings it into the offensive zone and wires a shot in that spot that we've talked about a lot. Over the pad, under the arm. For Vasi on that shot, it was the glove side.
Yep.
He zipped it. So it's 2-1. And the Sabres are starting to feel like, all right, this is what happened the night before in Florida. Game was 3-3 in the third. And Zucker scored 4-3. They locked it down. They got a late goal from Doan. They won 5-3. It's like, and the Zucker goal came kind of early in the third. Same sort of script. We're 1-1 going tie going into the third. We get the early goal in the third. Let's lock it down. Lightning didn't have much going for the next couple of minutes, but then they draw a penalty. They go on the power play. They only had 2 power plays in the game. And on this power play, Bjorkstrand scores the goal. But why does he score the goal? Darren Raddysh. Huge shot from the point. Again, we don't have access on hand, and I didn't even know how fast the shot was that went in at the end of the game until I read it in one of the stories. 98 miles an hour was the tying goal on the 6-on-5. I don't know how hard this shot was, but it was a hard shot, and it was on net. So Ellis makes the save, and if you heard at the end of the game, Greg, I asked Phil, how hard is it for a goalie to stop a shot that's, let's say, 95 miles an hour or faster, and if he stops it, right, not to give up a rebound? He's like, unless he catches it, it's going to be a tough save to make and not allow a rebound, unless it's like breadbasket, right? Like you swallow it up. This shot from Raddysh led to a rebound. Ellis is out to challenge the shot, and Bjorkstrand's wide open in front, and he slams it in. So now you're 2-2. Past the halfway point of the third period. We've seen games like this before with the Lightning in January. Tied in the third. They get the game to overtime. More often than not, they win. OT or in the shootout. Occasionally they lose, like they lost to St. Louis in the shootout.
Right.
One exception was the game in Pittsburgh where it was 0-0, and both teams scored late. But this was 2-2. We're into the third period, and John Cooper made the decision to send out the Finley line. And Phil and I both said, this is a big challenge for this line. They hadn't played much in the third period, but it's tied. So it starts with Moser making an outlet, and Finley can't get a piece of it. Now, I don't know if this is more on Moser or more on Finley, but it goes for an icing. Mistake number 1. Like you just gave the Sabres 200 free feet of ice. So Lightning, I think they won the faceoff, but they got it. They move it down the ice, and Curtis Douglas takes an offensive zone penalty. I mean, these are the details of the game that can tip the balance of a game. Now, I'm not saying this to pick on Douglas. I think it was a tough assignment. He hadn't played in the NHL since December 27th.
I was going to say, it's a tough ask, right? For a line that hasn't played a ton.
Yeah, and I mean, he's trying to make a play there. He's got the long reach, but he hooked the guy. I think it was hooking. Yeah, it was hooking.
Yeah, right.
So Lightning go on the penalty kill. They'd killed 2 penalties in the first period. Their penalty kill has been good this year, so they send out Guentzel, Hagel, Chernak, and McDonough. They got an early clear on the kill. They got it down the ice, but it was early, so they kept those 4 guys out there. Sabres brought it back in. Lightning could not get the puck out.
Yep.
So the Sabres ended up scoring with 2 seconds left on the power play. Those same 4 guys were out on the ice for the Lightning. So as good as a defenseman as good of a defenseman as Ryan McDonagh is, if you're going to force McDonagh to penalty kill for almost 2 full minutes, he's going to get tired. And give Josh Doan credit. Doan got position on McDonagh, and Thompson makes a great pass to him right at the end of the power play for a redirection. I think if that pass is attempted 30 seconds into the kill with a fresh McDonagh, maybe Doan doesn't get open. Maybe he doesn't get his stick in position. But a very well-executed play at the end of a very well-executed power play by the Sabres. Give them credit. And I think they had their same 5 guys on the ice for the full 2 minutes or 158, but it was less stressful for them. Like they were in control of the puck and they knew where they were moving it. And they basically didn't have to retrieve it after that early clear by the Lightning. So now it's 3-2 with like just over 5 minutes left. And the Sabres on the next shift did to the Lightning what the Gord line has done to other teams. They brought it in the Lightning's end. The Lightning couldn't get it out. And it was actually the Gord line was out there. They could not execute a clear. Vasi, I think, had to make a tough save during that sequence to keep it 3-2. But the clock's ticking, right? The Sabres basically burned between a minute and a half. From about 5 minutes left to about 3.5 minutes left, the Lightning couldn't get the puck with any sort of ability to sustain pressure. So I think the next line over the boards was James and Gonçalves and Kucherov. They had those 3. So Kuch basically took an extra shift. And they got it in the offensive zone. And they buzzed around a little bit. Didn't score. So now you're at about 2 minutes left. They pull Vasi. They get their 6-on-5 out there. And the Lightning did a good job on the 6-on-5. They did. Like the Sabres had one crack at the empty net, which was an icing. So maybe it wasn't really a crack at the empty net. I think it was Samuelson, actually, who just wired it down the ice. It missed, fortunately. And, the Lightning had a couple shot attempts. Ellis made a save on one. I think the other might have been tipped wide. The Lightning had to win 3 faceoffs in the offensive zone. They won the first 2, but then the third one they lost. The Sabres cleared it. So the Lightning have to re-enter the offensive zone. And Phil is commenting as they're trying to get it back in. He's like, careful, careful. Like he's afraid because they were trying to carry it in. It was going to get disrupted and it was going to get cleared or empty net goal, possibility for the Sabres. But they get it in. They set it up. And this play starts. So Raddysh takes a wrist shot that I think it got blocked. I didn't think he get credit for the shot, but it was blocked down low. It pinballs to Hagel. Hagel's at the left circle. Hagel makes a great pass cross ice to Kucherov. And now the Sabres are kind of like, well, wait a minute. That pass got through. What's Kucherov going to do? He feeds Raddysh. The middle opens up for Raddysh. And he even said, Kuch is giving me the puck. And he's saying, Raddysh, I just have to pound it. Yeah, just have to pound it. He is pounding the puck. He's pounding the puck, bumping 100 miles an hour and getting this shot on net. And he just blew it right past Ellis. Tie game with 25 seconds left. So the Lightning scored a 6-on-5. But they got goals 2 and 3 because of Raddysh's shot, how hard it was, and the fact that it was on net. So let me just talk about the overtime. I'll try and be more brief. So the Sabres had a good overtime. Like they had 5 shots in overtime. The Lightning had 1. The one shot the Lightning had was the goal.
Right.
So the Sabres had some looks during overtime. The last shift in overtime, though, they have on the ice Dahlin, Tuck, and Peyton Krebs. So Tuck brings it into the offensive zone, takes a shot. Vasilevsky makes the save. Dahlin, maybe he's seeing the clock. He's like, I know we're in the last 30 seconds. He's like, riverboat gambler. He goes into the corner. He's the one defenseman. Which, look, the other 2 guys have to defend too. It's 3-on-3. But your one defenseman is going into the corner in the offensive zone to try and win the puck. And Moser is able to just nudge it away from him. There was a point where nobody really even saw the puck. Like on my play-by-play, I heard the call. It's kind of like Moser reacts to make sure Dahlin can't get the puck. Like both Moser and Kucherov didn't go to the puck right away. Dahlin is sniffing after it. Moser nudges it away. When you watch the replay, Kucherov tries an initial pass for Guentzel, and I think his stick blade went over the puck. Or he just didn't get it, right? But as soon as it comes to Kucherov, you see Guentzel getting ready to leave the zone.
Yep.
So the first pass attempt actually missed. Had it connected, Krebs is not far from Guentzel. Guentzel isn't even past the red line when Kucherov whiffed on the first pass attempt. but Kucherov, like lickety-split, gets it again. And by the time he got it the second time, Guentzel has more separation. Really, it's Krebs. Like, Tuck is more at the blue line, the Lightning's defensive blue line. Krebs is out in the neutral zone, but he does not go to Guentzel.
Right.
So that allowed Kucherov to get the puck to Guentzel where Guentzel had space to score in the breakaway. It was a fantastic pass from Kucherov, and you consider, like, after the first one got foiled somehow, he didn't miss a beat. He was like, stayed on the puck and whipped it out. And what I will say about how the Sabres defended that, if you're in a 3-on-3 and you know your defenseman is down low in the offensive zone, the Lightning also had two guys deep in the Lightning's defensive zone, Moser and Kucherov.
Yeah.
There's one dangerous guy on the ice. One, Jake Guentzel. Krebs sees Kucherov try to make a pass to Guentzel and whiffs on it. Maybe he's thinking, we're going to retrieve this puck. I want to stay closer to, like, Vasilevsky. But if you're Peyton Krebs, you have to go to Guentzel there. He just doesn't even move. It's almost like in football, if the defensive back is close to the wide receiver and then bites on a pump fake and stops chasing the wide receiver gets more space. There's one dangerous guy that the Lightning had available there. And Krebs, if he skates with Guentzel, maybe he disrupts the breakaway, maybe he takes a penalty, which wouldn't have been a penalty shot. Like, if he's close enough, it could have just been a minor penalty, and there would have only been, like, 16, 17 seconds left. So to me, that's a big mistake by Krebs in that he didn't react. Because it's not like Kucherov made the pass attempt originally that connected. He tried it. Like, you could see in the replay where Kucherov is trying to go with the puck, and Krebs doesn't stay with Guentzel. So that part is on the Sabres, but a very well-executed play by Kucherov and a great finish from Guentzel, and that was your ball game. A very evenly, closely played game. But again, the Lightning, it's kind of like everything is coming at roses for them right now. A lot of these coin toss games, they're at least getting a point and often getting 2 points. So they improved to 18-1-1 in their last 20, which is incredible. I mean, I often talk about that 23-2-1 stretch they had in the 1920 season. I mean, this is approaching that streak. And their level of play has generally been very, very high. And even last night where they were off a little bit, like, it's hard to say they got outplayed. I'm not sure they got outplayed. They could have lost, but to me, it just kind of ended up being a very even game where the Lightning relied on two key plays in the third period to tie the game, and then the key play in overtime to win it.
I thought Gord had some looks in tight.
Yes.
We talk about
that was in the first
players.
period. Yeah.
Finley, once again, has a breakaway opportunity.
In the first period, yes.
Which, Finley, I mean, how many breakaway opportunities would you say this guy's had throughout the year? Limited opportunities.
Well, he scored in Florida.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had two in that game.
Yeah. It feels like he, for whatever reason, finds a way to get a breakaway.
And he
here
scored
and
in the Carolina game.
Yeah.
That first win in this 18-1-1 stretch. That was a big goal for Finley. Where he had a breakaway, the goalie made the save, and he put in the rebound. Yeah.
Yeah. Just, I don't know what to make of it other than I noticed it. Carlisle gets the opportunity to play, and Crozier's the one who sits.
Had him on the right side, which
Yeah.
was interesting. They had him with Hedman.
Brian felt like Crozier's play has dipped a little bit the last couple of games.
Okay,
And that
well, maybe the coaches agreed.
Yeah, and that Carlisle maybe has earned that right to stay in line. Also,
Yeah.
I think in some ways, too, it's another way to showcase some of these players. If you believe that there is an opportunity here for the Lightning to make a move, I have maintained that going back, you're probably looking at one or two players from the roster. Mm-hmm. And if teams want to see potentially a longer look at a player that maybe they're potentially interested in, this could be part of the process. Carlisle, bigger point, has earned it. He's played pretty well.
Yeah,
but
he has played well.
I don't know if many people thought maybe he was going to get the nod before Crozier in a game like that when they go 12-6, but he did. And so kudos to him.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with what you're saying because they had to make a decision about which defenseman was going to sit, and it was Crozier and not Carlisle, and they put Carlisle on his offside, which I haven't seen him play there. I'm not sure if he has played there in the minors, but that's a big ask. But I think the decision to go 12-6 I may be wrong about this, I'm guessing, the Lightning wanted to give Sabrin and Douglas a game together on a line with Finley before the Panthers game. So if you're going to play all three of those guys...
Why? What's going to happen on Thursday?
Well, I think I don't know if anything is going to happen, but I think they want those guys in the lineup on Thursday. So if you're going to put them in the lineup on Thursday, it would seem logical that you would give them a game together before that. So if you're going to do that, that means you are going to go 12-6, which means one defenseman is going to be scratched. And then I will defer to kind of what you said, Brian relayed. And there was a decision to be made, and this was the decision. But let's see if that Finley, Sabrin, Douglas line is in fact a line against the Panthers. When they've been a line, they haven't been a line often. When they've been a line, they've played some of their best hockey against Florida. So,
I haven't minded their game when they have played collectively.
Yeah. And they had the chance. The line had the chance in the first period that you referenced.
They get caught up in a numbers game, and I think situational hockey too. So if you're playing the Panthers, better chance that those guys are going to be in the lineup than if you're playing Colorado,
right?
Or Buffalo, or, something like that. I think extenuating circumstances allows them to get into a game like that last night. But that being said, I felt for Douglas a little bit because, of course, he wants to perform well.
Yeah.
And when he comes in, he takes that penalty. And I think it was in the offensive zone, correct?
It was.
I mean, those are kind of the worst ones that you can take. And so you acknowledge that, you move on. He'll learn from it. He's still a player who's evolving. And so let's see if he's better in the game on Thursday against the Panthers. Don't know what to expect there. You wonder, and this was brought up on the last call as well, players who are going to the Olympics. Mm-hmm. Are you thinking about that going into that last game? But
Panthers have 10 now with Bennett.
But the bottom line is you're playing the Panthers.
Right.
And so that's
But you're saying,
animal,
do you think about the Olympics? Like the Panthers, so the Lightning had they had 11, right, with Stahoviak.
Sure.
Without Stahoviak, 10. Take out Sorelli, that's 9. And I mean, some aren't going to be playing, like points out, right? So, but still, the Panthers now have 10. That list, Seth Jones is not going. So I'm not sure if that list includes Seth Jones or not. But they have 2 Latvian players who are going. Balinskis and Vilmanis are going to be teammates with Gergensons for Team Latvia. So the Panthers have a well-represented distribution of Olympians too. So we'll see. I don't know what to make of the game that we're going to have tomorrow. The Panthers will be playing the second half of a back-to-back. I think the big question is, because the Panthers have been very consistent at targeting Brandon Hagel when Brandon Hagel has been in the lineup in a game against the Panthers, which has happened twice, right? Mm-hmm. He's been in the lineup in the preseason, and he's been in the lineup for the one home game the Lightning had where Jones elbowed him. He missed the other 2. So, if I'm not mistaken, I think he missed the game after Christmas. I'm certain he missed the game after Christmas because that would have been a big deal if he was playing in Sunrise because we know, how Panther fans serenade him, as they did in the playoffs last year. So all signs point to him being in the lineup tomorrow. How are the Panthers going to react? Are they going to target him again? We'll see. Well, I don't know. I don't think John Cooper knows. So he's like, we're putting Douglas and Sabrin in.
Well, and the other thing, too, is the reason I brought that up, because you understand how important the Olympics are to these players. There's a lot of them going for both teams. And so I don't think it changes the way you play, but it is an interesting question, knowing how big the Olympics are. Mm-hmm. But this is the reason I don't think that's going to be the case. This is a heated rivalry. And so I think when that happens, the emotions sometimes get the best of you. But the Panthers need wins.
Yeah, that's the other part,
right?
Too.
I mean, they can't, like, if they...
Is this a retribution? Continuation of the Brandon Hagel hit Barkov in the playoffs last year, continue to pay the toll retribution movement from the Panthers, or are they like, however, we get it. We have to get points out of this game.
I mean, I think it could probably be both. Because I knowing the way sometimes these players and these teams think about trying to square one away with another team and a specific player, I feel like they could go over the line at any point. So I'm already putting that on the table that I anticipate the Panthers to do something in this game Thursday. What that is, I don't know. They're going to do something. But more importantly, though, this is a team that's 9 points out of a last playoff spot in the East. I mean, I didn't think I'd sit here 53 games into the regular season and think, you know, the odds of the Panthers making the playoffs at this point is maybe 50-50 at best. And I might even be being generous. I don't know. Maybe
they're dead last in the division too. So not only do they need to get into the top 5 at the very least,
yes,
they have to leapfrog now both Ottawa and Toronto.
That is correct. And now because you know how much energy you are going to be putting out to just get into the playoff race.
Yeah.
And that's why all these teams you have to leapfrog. That makes it a tough task. So the Panthers may be in real trouble. And the game on Thursday, if there's ever a point for them to, I don't want to say turn their season around, because you are going to have a huge gap with the Olympics coming up, it may be this game on Thursday for them.
Yeah.
I mean, they may look at it and say, you know, Olympics be damned, this is a playoff game for us. Because, boys, if we lose this one, we continue to dig ourselves a pretty significant hole. And it'll be interesting to see how that plays out tomorrow. So I'm excited about it. I think anytime those teams play, it's always fun. And boy, wouldn't it be nice for the Lightning to just, I don't want to say put the nail in the coffin even more, but you have a big-time chance to do some damage to the Panthers. So I think both teams actually will be up for this game, and I would anticipate a pretty intense game, and we'll kind of go from there.
Well, there's more at stake for the Panthers than the Lightning. I mean,
no doubt.
Yeah, there's always something at stake for the Lightning, and they want to beat their rivals and keep them down and improve their own standings position. But, I mean, the Lightning are in fantastic shape. I mean, they already have 4 bonus points in this 10-game segment. And they played 54 games. They have 6 games left in the segment. So, you know, they just want to keep munching points and keep those teams on the wrong side of the cut line as far behind their standings position as possible. But the reality for the Panthers, so the Panthers have played, I think they played the same number of games, but they play tonight. So they will have played 1 more game than the Lightning heading into the Olympic break. Actually, I'll look up and see. Panthers have played 55 games. So they actually played 1 more than the Lightning. So they'll be at 57 at the Olympic break. That means they have, 25 games left. Of those 25 games, I mean, Phil was saying he heard some people involved with the Panthers or were looking at the Panthers think they may need to win 20 of them just to have a shot to get into the playoffs.
Yep.
And they got a ton of road games on their schedule slate. So we'll see. It's not easy going deep in the playoffs 3 straight years. Lightning fans experienced that with the Lightning. But the Lightning never were in a position where they had such a precipitous drop-off in the next regular season.
Yeah.
Or the next regular season after the second cup, or the next regular season after the third trip to the final. Panthers did in the opposite order. They got to the final and lost, and they won their back-to-backs. Coupled with the fact that the rest of the division wasn't so competitive. I mean, if the division in the Atlantic more resembled, and it doesn't, but more resembled that year where the top 8 and the bottom 8, there was such a gap in the East, you know, things might look a little differently for the Panthers. But, you know, they have not played anywhere close to the level they need to based on the record. But also, like, all these teams are crushing it ahead of them and making it very difficult for them to keep pace right now. And the injuries hurt. But you know what? Mm-hmm. How many teams have big injuries? I think it's a combination of the 3. The injuries, the 3 deep playoff runs, and the fact that the division/conference has really been extraordinarily strong.
We call that the trifecta, and I actually think the conference being this strong is the biggest reason. because I think you could still say maybe they have enough there to win games in a season where it's not as competitive, but there are no easy games.
No.
I mean, there really aren't. So I think all three of those points that you brought up are correct. If I had to wager like which one is weighted the most, I would actually say the difficult schedule has been, or just the difficult conference.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't allow you any.
You can't afford
no
to have any kind of a losing streak. I mean, the Bruins lost 6 in a row in regulation very early in the year, but they bounced back, right? And they've offset that. I mean, the Lightning started 1-4-2. But, you know, this whole notion about the injuries. So, yeah, Barkov is he's their best player. He's their captain. Yeah. You're pulling him out. There's no question. That is an enormous hole. And they knew they weren't going to be able to fill it. They were going to have, you know, other guys chip in. And, you know, they've had other injuries. Kulikov got hurt in the second game of the year. They've been out without Seth Jones, I think, since the outdoor game because he got hit with a puck. So he missed about a month. But I'm actually going to look at their stats, and we can get more into the Panthers tomorrow. But just out of curiosity, of their main guys, how many of them have basically been with the team the whole year and not really missed any time? So I'm going to go to their stats. So they played 55 games. Sam Reinhart has played every game. Sam Bennett has played every game. Carter Verhaeghe has played every game but one. Anton Lundell has played every game but 3. Forsling, their best defensive defenseman, has played every game. Nico Mikkola, one of their top 4, he's played every game.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they've had a lot of their key players be healthy this year. So this may be an unpopular take in Pantherland.
Yeah, I don't think
because it's very convenient to just say, well, we have the injuries. Well, you know, a lot of their key players have been injury-free this year.
Yeah.
They have not gotten the same contributions from those players as other teams, not just the Lightning, but other teams who have had significant major injuries. They have had players come in and fill the gap. The Panthers haven't been able to have that happen for them.
And then you factor in the Eastern Conference is a bear.
Yes.
And you can see why that's where they are. The Lightning have had injuries, but their level of play has not dipped. It's actually gotten better, you know, in many ways. Who would have thought that? So that I think we kind of answered our question. Can it be a combination of all those? Yes.
Yeah.
I'm probably more inclined, though, to pour more weight into what you said about play and schedule.
But as it relates to tomorrow's game, like the Panthers are not giving up by any stretch.
No.
And you know it's going to be a rivalry game. This is the final game in the season series. So what the Panthers do after the Olympic break is going to be completely independent of what happens with the Lightning from the standpoint they will not see each other.
Yeah.
But I can tell you right now, the Panthers have to get super hot, and they need to hope that not just one, but probably multiple teams ahead of them in the division at least go super cold. And there's no guarantee that that is going to happen, and there are no signs that that is going to happen.
What hurts them, too, is they're not going to have the Lightning to make up ground because these games are going to be done. You know, so like if you're chasing teams, you want to be able to – those are 4-point games. So that's why tomorrow especially is going to be a really big one for them. Let's get to some questions, partner, to end the show. Before we do that tonight, enjoy some Refrum. Smooth, versatile, and now pouring at Benchmark International Arena. Order a Tropical Wave or a Lightning Mule and taste why fans are switching. Refrum is a premium craft Florida local rum built on authenticity, quality, and easy drinkability. Ask for Refrum by name. Go Bolts, and please enjoy responsibly. Let's get to Thomas, who says, Julian should make it his mission to ink Raddysh to a deal now. What a game last night.
Well, unfortunately, we only get to talk to Julian on the record a couple times a year, and he did his fireside chat earlier in January. It would be interesting to see where his mind is at, though.
Some good
questions.
At
what point is the sample size big enough for him to be like, yes, let's try and get this thing done?
We're going to get to that question here in a second, but Tampa Bay says, it is crazy that if Hetty and Mac were healthy all year, we probably wouldn't have seen this run by Raddysh.
Well, McDonough's in a little bit of a different category because, you know, he's not playing the power play, and he's a left side D, and Raddysh is a right side D. And it's really Moser has taken a lot of the stuff that McDonough did last year. for the Lightning when McDonough led the NHL in plus minus. Look where Moser is. Moser is among the league leaders in plus minus. I think he had a -1 last night, possibly. Might have finished even. But to me, it's like Moser has filled the skates of McDonough or gotten the McDonough assignments, and Raddysh has gotten some of the Hedman assignments, understanding Raddysh is a right D and Hedman is a left D, and Hedman and McDonough didn't play together, and Raddysh and Moser do. But we actually saw Raddysh move on to power play 1 before Hedman got hurt and pulled himself. I mean, he had 2 injury absences. Raddysh was on power play 1 before the first time Hedman went on the injured list. So I accept the premise, but I'm not sure, or I accept the thinking behind the premise. I'm not sure if it would have exactly unfolded differently, though. You know, if the power play is starting to score and Raddysh is on that first power play unit, whether Hedman is healthy or not, or was healthy or not, you know, they would have kept it the same. The point was the move was made before Hedman was unavailable.
Let's get to some more questions here. This goes from Louis. I can't imagine Cooper trading the reasons for exhaustion for anything. It's so much better than the bad things that usually wear coaches out. Well,
yeah,
that
coaches
is true.
do like winning. There's no doubt.
Chris says, not the prettiest games they've played, but you take the win. Cooch getting more media chatter with his start to 2026. Just hoping we survive Thursday without any more injuries.
Well, if somebody shines a giant bright light in your face, you're going to notice it. I mean, Nikita Kucherov, I saw the numbers. He has like 70 points in like a 30-game span or something like that. I mean, how far down in the scoring race was he after the first month and a half of the season? I think he's a point behind McKinnon at this point.
He's 5 points behind the league leader.
Yeah, he's rattling off 3-4 point games on a regular basis. You can't not notice him and what he's done. All right, thank you, Steve. Cooch has 75 points in the last 35 games, so I was in the ballpark. I must have said the numbers before last night when he had 4 points. I thought I saw 71. Somebody had the note that, like, Kucherov, 39 points in the last 15 games. So that 35-game stretch where he has 75 points, somebody said, Kucherov has more points in 35 games than some players had during the entire, like the league leaders had during one season that was cited. I mean, it's just bonkers what he's been able to do. And the power play getting hot has helped, no doubt. I mean, 2 of his points last night came, 1 on the power play, 1 on the 6-on-5. But he's on one of these Kucherov runs, and we've probably had another one like this, but this one is pretty special. Also, the Lightning are winning in a lot of games, so, I mean, he has benefited. I don't think this is, like, even close to, I mean, it's certainly not the majority, but, I mean, he is adding some with empty net points because the Lightning are up in games, and he gets to play in the 5-on-6. So whether he's scoring an empty net or he's setting up, Hagel has scored a lot of them. Usually,
it's part of the
scoring
process.
An empty netter,
right?
You know, Kucherov is getting a point there too. But you know, McKinnon is out there for empty net goals. McDavid is out there for empty net goals. So they have the chance to get those points as well.
So this was what I was referencing about some Raddysh questions. So Zebra says, so are we viewing this Raddysh hot streak as a career year, or do we think these numbers are sustainable? If so, how would we approach an extension? So a lot of things up in the air. You're speculating. We do not know if this is Darren Raddysh, the norm moving forward. Here's what I will say to this. Darren Raddysh is most likely going to surpass 20 goals this year. I mean, maybe even closer to 30, but let's say in the 20 to 25 range, okay? It would be hard for me to say that Darren Raddysh is going to be a consistent 20-goal scorer from the back end at his age for the next 5 to 6 years with certainty. That doesn't mean he can't be a point producer. But 20, 25 goals is a significant amount from the back end. I mean, partner, how many times has Victor Hedman done it in his career? Once, I think. And he's considered, I would imagine, a Hall of Fame type player when it's all said and done. That's not to say that Raddysh's skill set shooting the puck isn't, at this point, better. in his career than Hedman. I'm just making the comparison, how hard that is to achieve. Now, look, understand that his shot is a tremendous weapon that we haven't seen the likes of in quite some time. And as long as you have Kucherov feeding him the puck in that one area of the game, which is the power play, it's going to give Darren Raddysh opportunities to munch points from the back end. And he's also getting his shot on net, which is something he wasn't doing before, and it's something that John Cooper did point out yesterday in his press conference. So to answer your question, Zebra, do I think Raddysh is going to be a consistent 20 to 25 goal scorer from the back end from here on out based off of this season, which is where he's probably going to wind up? I'm going to give you my honest answer and say probably not. And I think those are numbers that Julian is probably weighing. That being said, I don't think his shot is a fluke. And I do think he's somebody that could give you 45 to 55 points from the back end and give you 12 to 15 goals pretty consistently from now until the length of his contract. I think this is an exceptional year. Sometimes athletes have that. I don't think it's the norm, but I don't think he's also a guy who's going to go back to 5 goals, 15 assists, and, playing limited minutes either. So I think you have to take that into consideration. What does that come out contractually? I've tried to be honest and give you my take on what the open market could be. Mish, you bring up a good point, and we've talked about this on the show before. For free agency, somebody is always going to overpay for free agents. That's just the nature of it's a bidding war. You take typically the best deal. I think for Raddysh and where he is and where the Lightning are, I could see something being in that range of 5 to 6 years at $6 to $7 million per year. And if you think that's too much based off of things that I laid out for you, then you have to live with the consequences that potentially this player could walk. If you think he can be somewhere in between what he's performing right now and you think it's worth it, then it makes some sense. Let me make this one other point, Mish, and then we can move on, or if you have thoughts to it. I think something we need to keep an eye on is the play of Victor Hedman. Because Victor Hedman is somebody who not only plays a lot of minutes, but is also somebody who can munch a lot of points. And if he's not going to get back to where we've seen him munching points at a pretty high level, I do think you need some offense from the back end. It has to come from somebody else. Okay? I don't think it's going to come from Moser. It's not going to come from McDonough, Chernak, Lilleberg. And I don't think it's coming from Carlisle or Crozier, although we don't know because they're still relatively young. I think Raddysh is the only real threat offensively back there on the back end outside of Heddy.
Destu.
And
Destu hasn't showed that he can do it at the NHL level, but in his past, he has. In his past,
but in terms of it, particularly scoring goals,
and he's a lefty.
Yes, and we think Destu has more to give. I actually think with his shot and being good offensively, but at least in terms of what we know, Raddysh is doing it, and so that may factor in. I don't know how big of a factor that is, but if you were to lose a Raddysh, that's a big hole offensively if Hedman doesn't get back to the level that he has been performing at for so many years. So take that for what it is.
I have no idea if the Lightning are going to make Raddysh an offer before the season ends. I have no idea if Raddysh would want to sign an offer before the season ends. I have no insight to that. The question was, is this kind of a fluke year? And really the question is, like, what is Julian looking at? He wants a bigger sample size, but what is in that sample size? So you've talked about the offensive numbers, and the offensive numbers continue to be great for Raddysh. I mean, he's on a 5-game goal-scoring streak. It's a franchise record in Lightning history among defensemen, and it's the first time since, I think, the 80s that we've had 2 defensemen the same year have a 5-game goal streak, because Jacob Chychrun had one earlier this year. So I have no idea what's going on in Julian's head, but I kind of look at it this way. Remember a couple of years ago, we were talking about Brandon Hagel because Hagel joined the Lightning and did not produce much offensively during the year in which he was traded, but had a very good playoff defensively, playing with Cirelli and Killorn. Mm-hmm. And we head into the next year and like, what are the Lightning going to get from Brandon Hagel offensively? What can they expect? And I remember we had this conversation. And I said, I have seen Brandon Hagel score goals, and I don't believe you just lose that. Like, it's not like he was having pucks go in the net when he was scoring with Chicago, like off the skate. Like, you know, he had somebody feeding him the puck in a way that he was just tapping it in. Like, he was shooting pucks in. So I'm like, I don't think you lose that. I didn't know if it would like unfold the way that it did, or he's, you know, elevated. But we've seen Brandon Hagel shoot pucks in with the Lightning. That's part of his arsenal. I don't know if Darren Raddysh is going to get to 20 goals this year. He's at 17. If he gets to 20, I don't know if he's going to be able to do it again. What I do know is that if you can shoot the puck at 95 miles an hour or faster and get that shot on net, you are going to get points. Maybe the puck's going to go in. Maybe it's going to be a save and a rebound like on the Bjorkstrand goal. You are going to create massive problems for the other side, and a lot of this is coming on the power play. I mean, he's got, of his 17 goals, 9 have come on the power play, and I think I saw a stat that 12 of his 17 goals have been on one-timers, which, who's feeding him the puck on one-timers? Kucherov. You know, are going to accept the fact that Kucherov is still going to be, you know, feeding him pucks. I think his offensive production is not a fluke. I think it's higher this year because he's getting the opportunity and he is meshed with this unit, and he's got confidence. Confidence can waver, but he's not going to forget that he's done it, okay? I think almost the bigger question, and without knowing exactly how Julian is processing this, the bigger question about Raddysh has always been, I think, defensively. And he has delivered an A++++ season offensively and defensively. He and Moser are one of the top defensive pairs in the NHL. So will that continue? Will it continue if Moser isn't his partner? And I wonder if Julian is really considering that piece of it. Now, maybe if that piece drops off a little bit, let's say Raddysh is not the same player defensively, although I think he's got a lot of, like, his puck poise is off the charts and he can skate out of trouble, but he's just making good, solid plays in the defensive zone. He's positionally sound. He's where he needs to be. Okay? But if Julian is like, all right, maybe baked into the cake here, we'll see a little regression defensively. What he gives us offensively may still be enough, right? So I think these are some of the moving parts without knowing for certain. But I will maintain, like, if you're a defenseman and you can rip the slap shot and bump 100 miles an hour and get your shot on net and have a guy who's feeding you the puck where you can drill it,
yeah,
I don't know that the production is going to go down. I don't look at that as a fluke. I look at that as a guy who got an opportunity and is taking tremendous advantage of that opportunity, but also has the skill set now and the swagger to really excel in that position. That's how I take it. That's how I would answer that question. Anyway.
It's a fair point.
Yeah.
And it's one that I think, you know what's funny is I think defense should never go into slumps. And so I feel like what we're seeing defensively from Raddysh is also probably a product of the confidence he's gaining offensively. He's playing more. Right. And so I think, and let's not discredit playing with Moser. So remember you and I and everybody eventually talked about, why was Chernak playing at such a high level? Did some of that have to do with Ryan McDonough? Yeah, I think it did. Is J.J. Moser in some ways becoming that a little bit?
Yeah.
Where that's his responsibility, and maybe they just play off each other very, very well. So to answer your question, I think that makes sense. I would say defensively is something that should always be there. I think we're seeing the offense finally round into form because he's playing more, and maybe that's fueling his defensive play, knowing he's going to be out there longer. Right. And he's also playing with Moser, who I think we're finding out is a pretty elite defenseman, at least defensively, so far this year. So,
and Raddysh seems to relish, like, the play me comment he had to Brian.
Yeah,
he relishes taking on more, and taking on more is not just playing on power play one; it's also getting those assignments with Moser against the opposition's top lines. I mean, now you got McDonough back, so McDonough and Chernak are taking some of that at times. But, Moser and Raddysh saw a lot of Tage Thompson last night.
Yep.
Per usual, right?
Yeah.
In other words, they see the other team's top line.
100%.
So Raddysh is like, yeah, bring it on. I want this responsibility.
No doubt.
It seems to be thriving in that role. So anyway, not our decision to make. But, I mean, we remember the guys who have the big shots. We talked about it on the show. You don't forget defensemen who can absolutely, blast the puck. Because when you're on the other side, you get a little nervous when you see that guy wind up for the big shot, right? That's what Raddysh is to other teams and other teams' fans right now. There's nervousness when you see him wind up because there are a few guys in the league who can shoot the puck as hard as him.
It's fun. It's a good problem to have.
Yeah,
and it's a big reason why the Lightning are where they are. All right, tomorrow, it's not the last show.
No, we're going through
game,
the week. Yeah.
Last game to break down a game, basically previewing a game. And then, of course, we'll be on the airwaves Friday. And then we're going to take some time off.
Yeah.
Because we need to.
Yes.
And that's
we need to get our rest, like John
We need
Cooper.
to get our rest. That's right. But we'll be back at it again tomorrow. Does it make sense to have somebody on from Florida at this point? Or is it kind of...
Well, they are going to be...
What do you think?
They are going to be having a back-to-back as well. So we may have to...
I don't care. Make them work. Make them work.
Well, we've had Doug Plagans on earlier this year.
Would Dougie come on?
It's possible.
He probably would. I think Doug
would.
relishes getting on the air. I like Doug.
We've had George Richards on before, though George doesn't travel.
Yeah.
Although he may come to Tampa for this game. I'm not sure.
Why wouldn't you? Although it's cold, stay inside if you can. Yes. Although he's being hit with some coldness as well. But I get it. We'll figure that out.
We will figure it out. Yes.
Great job as always, partner. Thanks to Steve Ersnick and Jared Johnston and everybody for listening. Appreciate you guys. I am Greg Linnelli. You've been listening to Power Lunch on Lightning Radio.